Welcome. My name is Lace Watkins, Executive Director, Chief Bottle Washer, and Head Chef of the Lace on Race Center for Racial Equity, the umbrella over which all of our work at Lace on Race resides. I'm here in San Diego, but we are a nationwide and even worldwide organizations. We have people in Cambodia, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in South America. Because the work of racial justice is not just a North American thing. So glad, so very glad that you found us. I hope that you will find your time here fruitful and nourishing and ultimately effective. I want to say this, and I'm going to say this over and over again as I do these welcome videos, because there's going to be a series of them, and I hope you can grab onto each one of them, is that while I know that if you do this work well and with intention, good things will happen for you. But I need to say this up front. The good things that will happen for you, being able to communicate more effectively, being able to hold your slosh, what we call being able to have emotional regulation, being able to stay in the car and be relentlessly reliable with the things and the people that you care about, and becoming closer to the person that you say you want to be. Oh yeah, that will all happen. But I gotta tell you, that is secondary to our mission statement, what we call our North Star. And we want to make sure that you get off on the right foot. Did you hear me say that? On the right foot. Why this is important is because we are indeed asking different things of you than other people might ask. We are asking more in terms of your commitment, because the work of racial justice cannot be learned and inculcated, internalized, and applied in 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months. We believe that racial justice is an inside job. So even as we talk about the intellectual, we talk about the academic, we talk about the historical, what matters as well is who you are as you learn these things. We want you to get it all in so you can take it outside. There is an article that we're going to link to that came out last year from Vox Magazine, where I was profiled. And one of the things that I and the interviewer talked about was the development in the last 5 or 6 years, since a lot of people took up the racial justice mantle, was that there was the tendency or the danger of becoming well-read racists. Everybody knows all the catchphrases. Everybody has read all the books. But if it has not changed your life, and crucially, if it has not changed the life of the people that you say you stand for and with, it's an exercise in futility. People don't say that a lot, but we do. We want you to learn. We want you to learn about yourself. We want you to learn about the people you say you stand for and with. We want to get you closer to the person you say you want to be and the person you are now. Every single one of us has an amount of daylight about the person that they want to embody and the things that hold them back, that keep them from that. I know I do. And every day is a quest to become ever closer to the woman that I say I want to be. And I want to encourage and exhort you to want that same thing. Here's the difference between this and a bunch of other self-help programs, because let me tell you, this is not a self-help program. It's why we do it. That is where the North Star comes in. Here it is for those of you who haven't seen it on the website or on the Facebook page. It is why we do everything we do, and it is what it is measured against. It's what we're saying, it's what we're writing, it's how we're living in alignment with North Star values. Here's the North Star: lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. I want to say that again because every single word is important. That mission statement was crafted and curated with great care by me. And it is important that we remember that. The North Star of Lace on Race. Lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. People think they already do it. But do they? Do I? Do you? We want to make a racial justice journey, a racial justice walk, as we say it, marrow deep, not something you slip on and off like a coat. And in order to do that, the North Star has to be front and center at all times. At all times. It's not something you put in the glove compartment before you go to work. It's not something that you stash in your purse before you go to your houses of worship. It's not something that you hang in the mudroom before you engage with your family and your friends. It has to be something that is so deeply etched into you, into your very core, that nothing can shake it. It also needs to be something that is not liable to the whims of emotions. And we talk about this. That is why we say that racial justice is, before it's anything else, it's an inside job. Everyone says, Lace, it seems like you want to change me. I said it in another video, and I'll say it again. Yes, I do. Some of the premises of Lace on Race, such as we've been sold a bill of goods as to what durable racial justice praxis looks like, going all the way from the modern civil rights era, starting in the mid-50s, up until now. It's been 65 years of wrong instruction. This is not easy. This is not free. It's free-ish. Multiple entry points, but it will cost you. Done well, it'll cost you in social capital. One of the weirdest and perhaps the most ironic thing about me exhorting and encouraging and inviting you into a durable racial justice praxis is that I don't have a lot of goodies to give, or the sort of things that people would consider goodies. Oh, I got to tell you up front, you're going to lose friends. If you're convicted enough, you may lose social and, crucially, economic capital, because we at Lace on Race feel that racism and white supremacy are primarily economic constructs, and we hit on that hard. You're going to get really annoyed with my talking about money, but I'm going to talk about money because you cannot talk about race without talking about money. The North Star of Lace on Race, lessening and mitigating the harm. That is both on the macro level and on the micro level. It's looking at the world, at systems and institutions from 10,000 feet, and it's also looking at the way you relate to your neighbor at coffee hour, in the kitchen at work. It's all of it. And a lot of people compartmentalize parts of this. They're interested in racial justice, but it is in a nice little box. And when they're done with the racial justice box, they set it aside. Here at Lace on Race, there's no setting aside. It is permeated in everything, in everything. The fragrance of racial justice should be what you breathe in and what you breathe out. It doesn't matter if you're in the produce department at Sprouts. It doesn't matter if you're picking your kid up. It doesn't matter if you're having a spirited debate in a Zoom call. It all needs to be internalized and inculcated. Never forgotten, never ignored. The reason why it's an inside job is because it is so easy to have a conviction that's cloaked around you. And it's easy to shuck off that cloak when you come to choice points or when you come to pain points, where it's hard to be the person that you say you want to be. But first and foremost, something that people don't talk about a lot, not just in racial justice, but in other things as well, is that first we need to decide. We need to decide who we want to be. People talk about being 100% for racial justice, ride or die, that they will lay it all down. But it is amazing how fast people are willing to jump out of the car at the first choice point or pain point, and sometimes just even when they don't like the tone. We're going to talk about that too. For the longest time, the work of racial justice has been dictated by white people. That needs to change. The terms that we use that began sometimes, oftentimes, almost all the time, with Black and brown people have now gotten morphed. And it's almost the same as in, dare I say, pardon this example, customer service. I am old enough to remember what customer service looks like, what a professional tone looked like, what going the extra mile looked like. The problem began when corporations started setting the terms and deciding for us what our customer bill of rights should be. And there was a lot of daylight between what corporations thought we deserved and what we actually deserved as humans and as consumers. And it's the same thing here. It's whoever has the power gets to set the terms, gets to set the definitions, gets to set the parameters of the racial justice discussion. Again, we disagree with that utterly. Also this, racial justice is not a gig for spectators. While we encourage you to grab a cup of orangeade and a slice of orange cake, and you're going to ask, what's it with all the oranges? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. We want you to gulp it down like Gatorade and a power bar and get on the field with us. That's another lie that people have been told. And it's become more and more pervasive over the last 6 years or so. That you can sit in the stands and metaphorically like or heart, and that's the extent of your racial justice action or commitment. I'm here to tell you unequivocally that that is, while perhaps necessary at first, and by at first I mean the first 2 milliseconds, but it is wholly inadequate in order to create the world we want to see, or we say we want to see, while at the same time being the people that we say we want to be. To use some terms, we want congruence. We want alignment. We want, and you'll hear this more and more, relentless reliability. That's something that has not been seen in full measure within racial justice spaces over the last 65 years. People think of it as a one and done. You throw $5, you march once, and then you're done. But you think good thoughts. Does thinking good thoughts lessen and mitigate the harm to Black and brown people? I posit that they do not. Let's go on to perpetuated. Perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. See, this is the part where people start clenching up. And I'm going to ask that you nod. Most people can deal with the idea of white supremacy, if they're white. White supremacy, systems, institutions, 10,000 feet. But the idea of individual white people perpetuating racist and white supremacist acts and thoughts and outcomes, well, that's because eventually they have to look at themselves. The converse is true for people of color. It's easy to talk about racist systems and white supremacy within white people. That is low-hanging fruit, y'all. But I am lovingly calling in everyone. Black people, brown people, Asian people, indigenous people, all of us. Because here's the thing. We are all in the soup of white supremacy. Not one of us is spared. Not one. Certainly not myself. Choosing to confront systems and institutions is difficult, and it is righteous work, and we do it here. But it's not enough to rail at the 65-story building that houses corporations and governments and academia, while not looking at what's on the ground. Both pieces parts are necessary. The macro and the micro. Hovering at 10,000 feet and boots on the ground. Here we encourage, and I will take it a second step, we expect you to engage. We expect you to be in the scrum, mixing it up with me, mixing it up with my leadership team, mixing it up with fellow walkers. It is the only way to learn and to inculcate and to absorb marrow deep. Here's the thing. You don't know what you don't know. As you continue walking with me, you are going to learn how much I love quadrants. I love them. And one of the quadrants that I love is what you know and what you don't know. What other people know about you and what they don't know. And there's your quadrants. What you know and other people know. What you know, but that you're holding in reserve. What other people know about you that you are blind to. And what neither you or anybody else knows because of various things. That top right quadrant, what you know and what other people know, I love that quadrant. Oh, baby, I love it. That is part of being transparent and authentic and living out loud. When I ask you to share things, I'm going to ask you to set it to public. It shouldn't be out of 300 of your friends, only 10 of your nearest and dearest who already know how you feel and won't be challenged. And it's going to be your amen corner. We'll talk about that later too. But it's important to go into those lower quadrants. What you don't know and what other people don't know. And what other people know that you do not know about yourself yet. That's where the mirror comes in. That's where the confrontation comes in. That's where the self-interrogation and the self-reflection begin. And it will be in that work where you will become ever closer to the person you say you want to be. That's why in the 6 tenets of Laissez Race, one of them is dig deep and plant roots. We'll talk about the tenets later too. We are committed to a safe space. I'm going to give a small caveat to that. A safe-ish space. Talking about race is fraught. You will be activated. You will be triggered. But being activated and triggered is not the same thing as being harmed. Being activated and triggered sometimes can lead to conviction and change. And that's what we want. Being triggered or activated can also lead to behaviors that, however unintentionally, can indeed harm the people that you say you stand for and with. We need to look at those things so that we are engaging with the world one-on-one, small groups, your entire office, the entire world, in ways that are grown up. That's another one of our tenets, by the way. Grow up. In the Vox article that we're going to share later on this week, I talk in there about one of the lies that people have been given about racial justice work, being that you're allowed to be toddlers in the work. And it's always Groundhog Day because there's only a certain amount you want to know, right? Because the more you know, the more you're responsible for and the more you're accountable to. That's a big deal. That can make it a very strong disincentive for people who are in power positions to want to know more. especially those who do indeed have the juice and the social capital to make effective change. So that's why we say safe-ish. While the conversations can be fraught, we can set the conditions to make the conversations as safe as possible. That means a lot of things that you may not see in other spaces. You are not going to see sarcasm or contempt here. Something that I read years ago, is that people learn best when they know that they are loved. When they know that they are loved. Not a Hallmark card, iambic pentameter, sickly sweet that makes your teeth itch kind of love. But what we're talking about here is a term that we use a lot here called hesed. Hesed is a strong, muscular, no-nonsense kind of love. It's me putting on my work boots and the apron that Helene gave me and getting out there and mixing it up with you. Shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye. That takes what we call kind candor. You'll hear more about it. And it's in the guidelines that I am encouraging you to peruse. You'll find them. But basically what that means is you can say anything. You just can't say it any old way. That is not tone policing. That is not censorship. That is remembering the humanity of the person you are walking with. No matter how problematic they are. No matter how badly they stumble. Because you were once that person, and you'll be that person again, and you are going to want people to hoist you up on your shoulders and pull you up instead of tear you down. The work that we are talking about takes trust, and you cannot trust people who you feel are contemptuous of you, and you can't respect people that you are contemptuous of. We're going to talk about this more too, but this is an introduction. And this dress, wow, just you have to sit a very certain way for the orange dress. I always forget. One of the things that's important to remember is you are not expected to swallow my entire fish. A lot of people say that. And in fact, full disclosure, I've been called a cult leader. I have been called a charlatan cult leader. It's great. Someone actually made a necklace for me that actually says that. I don't wear it, but I kind of look at it and giggle sometimes. Because actually, at the very beginning stages, at this pre-primer level, where you are still relatively new to this, there are some premises and theses that I'm going to ask you to swallow whole. Another way that white people have dominated the narrative is that they've done these sea lioning, devil's advocate. Have you considered this perspective? Are you sure that's what really happened? All of those, and so many more are ripped straight from the white supremacy playbook, and we don't play that here. Racism is real. Racism still occurs at the macro level and at the micro level. Every one of us is a full-on racist. That's why it's impossible to be non-racist. It's even hard to sometimes be anti-racist, because if you're going to talk about that, then you also have to talk about the ambivalences of being anti-racist. What are you giving up? Remember the lie that you were told that it wasn't going to cost you anything? And also, who will you be afterward? In order to change, to do effective change work, that means that you will indeed have to change. That means teachability. That means curiosity. That means humility. As you get on deeper into the work at the Lace on Race Cafe, for instance, or at Chef's Table, yes, there'll be times to mix it up intellectually, but right now, in the same way that you don't expect your 6-year-old to question whether or not A, B, C, D, E, should F come after that? Because that's the way it is. You got to learn the alphabet before you can write the sentence, before you can write the essay. 2 plus 2 really is 4. We're not going to spend half an hour or 6 months debating that central truth. So there are some things I'm going to ask you to accept on a foundational level, and then we can go from there. The last few things that I want to talk to you about are kind of housekeeping. You got to come here on your own, particularly to the Facebook page, but also to the website. Facebook is not going to help you. Like many other public intellectuals, which I always twitch a little bit when I call myself that. Other people have, but in order to see this slightly pudgy suburban lady from Lemon Grove, North Encanto, California, you're going to have to come here yourself. You are going to have to take the responsibility of surfing over. That's just true. Facebook is not going to do it for you. Most thinkers and commentators and writers in Black and brown spaces are actively suppressed by Facebook. Parenthetically, the first 6 months of Lace on Race, it was almost impossible for me to post because they saw race and they assumed, or they told me that they assumed, that I was a white supremacist, even though my thumbnail was right there, because race was in the title and their algorithm went crazy. It's been a struggle the entire time, which is one reason why we're moving to the website. LaceOnRace.com, LaceOnRace.com/groups. That is the Lace on Race Cafe, and LaceOnRace.com/activity, which is our activity feed, which looks a lot like a Facebook page, made to be user-friendly, actually made to be Lacey-friendly. So it's going to be friendly for you too. Facebook is not going to help you. I am, guess what? You're going to be surprised to hear this, but I am a power user of Lace on Race. I see almost none of our posts as I scroll my personal feed. You won't either. That means you need to be intentional about coming, intentional about reading what we call the pinned post, the foundational documents. On the website, they're called the starter menu. You're going to have to be intentional about this. But it's a great practice. We're a lab. We're a practice space. That's great practice for being intentional and seeking out in your outside lives. And no one's going to help you come to the website. That has to be you. So you have to do it yourself and you have to stick with it. Like I had said before, there is almost no way that you are going to be able to have an effective racial justice praxis that has staying power and durability and crucially, effectiveness. If you treat this as a 20-minute break, 20-minute entertainment, yeah, we want it to be engaging. We want you to like what you read. We want you to want to come back again and again and again and again. But we are not an entertainment space. You'll see that in the guidelines too. And lastly, we do talk a lot about money in the aggregate, but also here as well. It is vitally important that people who say they are engaged and interested and ride or die with racial justice learn that it takes more than bubble gum and good intentions. One reason that racial justice has not had the staying power and the durability is that Black content creators, Black intellectuals take 2 and 3 and 4 jobs to produce what you ultimately consume for your own aggrandizement. We are turning that on its head. Yes, the sustainability and longevity of the Lace on Race Center for Racial Equity is important. I think we are doing work that no one else is doing, melding philosophy, sociology, psychology, racial justice, all into one big bowl. We think it's worth supporting, and we're worth being here at the Lace on Race Center for Racial Equity for the long haul, and that's how we do it. We are not going to water down our message. That mission statement has gotten us in trouble. A lot of trouble. A lot of people want us to soften it, want us to water it down. Though that last piece, lessening and mitigating the harm to brown and black people, yeah, we can get behind that. But perpetuated by? Oh, wow, you're pointing fingers, Lace. Oh, If you want this $500 dangled over here in the form of a grant, you might want to sweeten it a little bit. And then what I tell them is, I did sweeten it. I could have gone a lot harder. But we are always going to be funded by our community members primarily. There are other funding channels. We are coming out with merchandise, including the wonderful Lace on Race calendar. Oh, let me show that to you. I think you'll like it. I had to move. The Lace on Race calendar 2022 is one of the things that we are doing as a fundraiser, but also just because it's so darn great. It's an original poem by me, God is a Black Woman, and amazing, I'm just doing this randomly, amazing graphics by our staff, one of our staff members, Meleza Flores. And I love all of them. Oh my goodness, July is amazing. So yes, we are looking at as many funding channels as we can. We will be going for grants. Whether or not we get them is another story. And also, we're looking at speaking gigs, consulting gigs, and those are amazing for me to do. I love doing them. The more, the merrier. Gets me away from my laundry room. But primarily, just like public radio, the primary source of our funding is going to be our community members. That is what we mean by keeping the space free-ish. We could go to Patreon. We could go behind a paywall. We choose not to. In the same way as our calendars are pay it forward, pay what it is, and if you can, kick in a little bit, because we don't want to say no to anybody who wants a calendar or a sticker or note cards or whatever else is in the Lace on Race marketplace, which is up and live now. We want everyone to be able to be part of community. When we do Lace on Race lives, either on Zoom because of COVID or out in the country, we want to make sure that everybody who wants to be seated in that room can be there. Racial justice should not be class-based. It shouldn't depend upon your credit limit. And we change that. But the Western Star is important for another reason. It is about time that we who say we care about racial justice stop playing Groundhog Day with racial justice. One of the last things I want to tell you before, and there'll be more videos, maybe even in the same dress, maybe not the same wig. For those of you who don't know, I have alopecia. I wear wigs. So it's always, check out the videos just to see what wig I'm wearing that day. But one of the things that I want to talk to you about is this idea that what if we had and formed a movement that was durable? For 65 years, we keep on playing Groundhog Day. A lot of the same questions and a lot of the same issues that are extant in 2021 were extant in the 1963 March on Washington. That was 10 days after I was born, by the way. 58 years later, we are asking the same questions. And I want to leave you with this. We need to start asking better questions. We need to start to feel what a durable and effective community can look like. And we are not arrogant enough, but assured and confident enough to know that at least one place in the racial justice sphere where that is true is here at Lace on Race. Again, we are so glad you are here. We want you to stay. As I say all the time, keep walking. With love, your Lace.